Welcome to the Breakout Growth Podcast, where Sean Ellis and Ethan Garr interview leaders from the world's fastest growing companies to get to the heart of what's really driving their growth. And now, here are your hosts, Sean Ellis and Ethan Garr.
All right, in this week's episode of the Breakout Growth Podcast, Ethan Garr and I chat with Hugo Pereira. You may remember Hugo from an early episode when he was leading growth at EVBox, an electric vehicle charging stations manufacturer that was in hyper-growth scale-up mode. It was a great conversation, and when we heard that Hugo was now building Ritmoo, a startup team communications and engagement platform, we thought this could be a really interesting revisit, and we weren't disappointed. So Ethan, what stood out to you?
Man, Sean, I'm such a Hugo fan. When he was first on the podcast with you, I wasn't even your co-host yet, but I just remember listening to that conversation and thinking, this is how I want to look at the world. Hugo has this personal mission to be a continuous agent for positive change. And he's so intentional with that. He talks about that every time you talk to him. And you can tell he just lives it every day and is bringing that into this startup work. And, it's just such a different world from that rocketship scale up at EVBox that he was at to now this pre-product market fit startup. But I think it's that contrast where the learnings are in this conversation.
Yeah, I think that's where our listeners are going to find some real value in this conversation. Hugo's bringing that amazing scale-up experience into his approach to driving startup success, but he isn't making the common mistake of believing that because you found product market fit in one place, you're automatically going to find it in another. He's listening to the market. He's talking to people about their problems. He's running pilots. He's doing everything that you need to do to give yourself that fighting chance. It's a systematic, data-driven, and experiment-based approach.
Yeah, definitely. And I know the odds are always stacked against startups, but if I had to bet on someone being able to figure it out, I'd just bet on Hugo. I think his approach is just so sound. And, there was this one moment where he said that if he and his co-founder find that their product assumptions are wrong, they'd be willing to go into the service business mode for a year or more just to recalibrate their approach and better understand the market. And I think, most founders probably don't have that room, but most wouldn't have the patience. And I think that, it just makes so much sense as he thinks about this new kind of world that he's approaching.
Agreed. And his scale-up experience helps him to think about prioritization and goals in a way that most founders can't. He had to learn how and when to say no at EVBox to keep an eye on what really mattered. And that's particularly important when you're trying to find product market fit in the startup world.
Yeah, he has a super principled approach to leadership and focus. And I think, he's just really good at articulating that in a way that our listeners are going to be able to benefit from and relate to. I don't think people hear this and think of this as like an academic exercise. It's just down to earth, actionable insights from a really smart guy.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right, Ethan. And I wouldn't bet against Hugo either. It may take some time, but he's one of the real leaders in the growth space. And I have a feeling that we're going to have him back on to talk about Ritmoo's growth in the not too distant future. So should we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Hugo, welcome back to the Breakout Growth Podcast.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Ethan. Really great to be back here. And thanks for the honor to be back. It's almost like a veteran here.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, I'm joined by my co-host, Ethan. Hey, Ethan.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Hugo. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it is fun. We haven't done a recording for a while, so I'm excited to be doing another recording. We had a bunch of them backed up, and so now I think this is our first of 2023. So almost 2022.
Yeah.
So it's how much of a time warp that I'm in. But all right, well we'll jump right into it. So we actually, as Hugo mentioned, he's a bit of a veteran, and he's been here on the Breakout Growth Podcast in the past with a company called EVBox, and so they're manufacturer of electric vehicle charging stations and a super fast growth company where Hugo was chief growth officer. And now we have him back on as the founder of his own startup. And so it's going to be an interesting conversation contrasting a super fast growing company to one that fast-growing company actually had been acquired to one now where you're starting the journey from the beginning. So maybe you can give us a quick introduction to what Ritmoo is and what drove you to take on this new challenge.
Yeah, so EVBox, to wrap up that story, EVBox was a fantastic experience, a hyper growth experience from 10 to 600 people in close to 5-6 years, and then we grew also from 6-7 million to 100+ million revenue. So that was all great, and now nurture the experience for life, the learnings, achievements, failures. The trigger for Ritmoo happened actually with the sabbatical I took after EVBox. So me, my wife, and my daughter, which was a 6-month-old daughter, we went to Costa Rica for 3 months. And during that period, it helped me reflect not just on EVBox, but all the prior experience I've had with startups and scale-ups, and try to figure out, okay, who am I without EVBox? Yeah, because you become very linked with the success of a company. So I was like, okay, so who am I now if not the growth officer or the person that was with EVBox? So back to my kind of personal, let's call it North Star or personal statement, I really want to be a continuous agent of positive change. That's kind of my internal core. Mm-hmm. So I started reconnecting a lot with the people that I hadn't been in contact with EVBox, maybe sadly so, but the intensity of a startup and scale up sometimes trumps personal relationships. And I was like, okay, the last 7 years have been a little bit maybe too much focus on the growth, and now let me reconnect with people I worked in the past, where they are. And that conversation led me to the realization that there was something off with the ways that teams are being engaged or being managed nowadays. And due to a variety of factors, a lot of conversations that were talking about how trust between managers and employees were lost or harder to be retained, on how the post-pandemic remote and hybrid work brought challenges on a day-to-day basis, on how to manage a team almost virtually, but no one was changing the habits, and organizations were becoming more top-down rather than a bottom-up conversation. And somehow there's more tools than ever before for knowledge management, like Notion, ClickUp, but information overload is making it really hard for teams to be productive. So many conversations were there, and then I realized, okay, what about trying to start something simple, which is a vision to build a platform that just enables a productive team culture. That was the basis for Ritmoo. Mm-hmm. And then with that I was like, okay, but what does that mean? And then we were like, okay, let's start by thinking that Ritmoo will be a place where you bring clarity to the team by making collective decisions, where people can engage in conversations on a specific topic, call out a decision, and then rate the decision that was made a month, 3 months, and 6 months down the line, because that's one thing that never happens, which is what is the impact of something we have decided on down the line. And doing that by integrating data like Salesforce, Google Analytics, so for enforcing or empowering the team to be data-driven from the get-go. And then the other part is running habit-forming experiments, which in product is very common to do. Yeah, so we want to run an experiment. We build an hypothesis. What is the expected outcome? How do we run the experiment? And how are we going to track the improvement? But funny enough, no one does that for the team. No one runs an experiment on a team as simple as how can we improve trust amongst the team and improve and increase psychological safety. Mm-hmm. And just let the team run with a few hypotheses. Let them run the experiment, the team members, not the manager, but the team members. And then once the outcome is there, adopt and scale. That's essentially the concept behind. So just helping build this collective decision-making, having an experiment sort of platform that helps track the experiments on the team, and then automating the rituals to create an effective team workflow. So kind of create recipes for a retrospective, for a Monday kickoff. So that's the hidden part behind Ritmoo, but overall, we want to iterate and figure out how we can really be a coach behind the team to create a productive team culture, and very practically speaking.
Great. I have another question for you, but I want to bring Ethan in here, so I'll save it for a little bit. Ethan, go for it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when Sean and I have coached growth teams a lot, you think of it like, okay, how are we going to organize the growth team? And you launch it, and it's never what you think it's going to be. And it always ends up being a series of experiments to figure out what's the right approach to kind of balance the needs and the culture. So I do like the idea that it's a way to sort of build in testing into your own processes that's actually sort of tracked and managed. And I love the idea of reviewing decisions over time, because a lot of times we just live with them and hope for the best. But I think it probably is super valuable to think about it. Like how in general, how are we looking back at our decision making? Do we have to, optimize that? What I was curious about though was, as you made this transition from this really like large hypergrowth company with all this success into the world of the startup world, which is so different. I mean, 600 people to probably a handful of people now. I'm curious what you brought from the scale up world that you think really is going to help you be a better founder and better leader in this role. And also, maybe is there anything that you had to sort of unlearn or push aside because you'd say that actually might be detrimental in the startup world?
Oof, that is a really big question. Definitely going through all the different stages of growth at EVBox helps you gain memory muscle on what to do at certain different stages, at least understanding, these are the common challenges that happens at this phase, and this is what you can do about that, or the multiple options. I actually believe at this stage of the company, the previous startups can help me more because it was the search for the product market fit. But once product market fit is found, there are a few things at EVBox that happened well and didn't happen so well that helped me out. One of them being, for example, to continuously re-engage the organization on what is key focus and what matters most, and having the courage to say no to things that are in priority to that growth path. And I say specifically courage to say no, because a lot of the times what happens, especially with B2B SaaS, is you go after your segment, you grow, and then maybe there is one enterprise company that wants to come in. And then you are like, this is a really big contract. But it might not be the right fit for your product. But then you go after this enterprise and try to solve their customer pain. And all the other ones that you are targeting that were part of your growth path are left behind and not really having the usability for your product anymore. So that's one of the things that with EVBox is definitely a great learning. And at its best, I felt that EVBox was really connecting purpose, priority, and productivity really well. There was a very clear mission that everyone was connected with. The priorities were well set and driven through the organization, and everyone was being productive by trusting each other's expertise. That was the moment we were at our best as an organization. And that also happened because the attention was put on what the customer wants, moreover what the competition is doing. And that's one thing that I want to also bring with me, which is the tendency to look at the competition pretty quickly. They are doing this, they are doing this, they are doing this. Let's do the same, especially on the feature-wise. And maybe losing touch with the customer is something I do not want to forget. So those for me are key elements of the scaling up that I want to bring up. On the unlearning part, I think one of them is kind of a privilege that happened at EVBox, which was the fact that there was a mindset to serve the industry, and this partnering up together, being very close even with competition to work together to solve a customer pain. And I'm now conscious that I have to unlearn a little bit that mindset, that maybe I have to understand that it is a very competitive world where I'm headed towards, and the people I'm addressing and the target audience I'm addressing are going to evaluate different propositions to solve their pains, and I'm not going to be the only one. So that is an unlearning I have to do. And the other one is just the amount of investment that went into EVBox, into hiring, technology investments. That was very easy to get used to, not unlimited budget, but more than enough budget to operate what you need. And the reality is that now I have to operate more on a creative way of reaching the customers rather than, advertisement spent or big brand awareness investment. So I think I have to unlearn the easiness of getting that money to execute things. So I have to be much more smarter and creative on getting attention to what the problem is to what the product is solving.
Yeah, I think the contrast of what you're doing right now is so big compared to when we had you on before. I think you were saying you were, at times the company was adding 50 people in a month, and these massive scaling challenges, and at your stage, trying to get the right solution and understand the market in the right way. It's kind of a different type of puzzle piece that you're dealing with. But I do think some of that scaling that you were doing, that massive scaling that you were doing, probably informs the product roadmap to some degree. I'm curious how you're using that experience to help you guide development of the product.
Yeah, so definitely it helps, and especially in two ways. One of them, in that crazy period of people onboarding, a lot of the focus we've put at the time was on the onboarding experience. That 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, we changed a variety of times. It was very intense on presentations, workshops, but then after those 2 weeks, people were like, okay, now go on to your role, execute, and thank you very much. See you in one of the next meetups. Mm-hmm. And people have to basically get up and running, read a bunch of documents on Confluence, Slack. But what I realized is that they took quite, especially as the company started growing faster and faster, was getting bigger, it was really tough for them to understand how they differentiate, how can they add value to the team, because the team was changing so fast that they didn't understand how the team made decisions or how the team communicated and engaged. And there is no way to just, no one was scrolling up on Slack threads and seeing like, oh, let me see what they discuss about this. No one has the time or the intent to do that, but they would love to join a team and be like, oh, let me think about what they made decisions on product marketing in the past, or what kind of decisions or experiments they run in the past. How does a team come to decisions? Who participates? All that information is so valuable for you to understand who you are joining and what kind of value you can add and contribute with. So that keeps on my mind off the back, which is, okay, how can this be kind of the social muscle that when you join the team, you can actually go back and see, okay, let me see the last 3 months of decisions, and what kind of decisions this team spends time on. That kind of thing I don't see out there, and maybe it's because it's underestimated the power of understanding that. So that gives me value and strength to see that, okay, let me see if that is actually a pain point that can solve so much. That's one of the elements. And the other one is just the way you search information on, I don't know, Confluence, on how the company runs. And it's more futuristic view for Ritmoo, where I would love that people just join a company and say, has anyone tried an experiment on the homepage that drove any kind of results in the past 18 months? And it just literally gives you the answer. Almost like the ChatGPT approach, but just give you the answer of saying, based on 3 documents or based on 4 conversations, the last experiment was done on this date with these results. I think that would be an amazing memory muscle, especially as I also join a few fractional leadership roles as I build Ritmoo, for very clear cash flow reasons on the personal side.
Right.
And when I join a team and try to understand how they came to be who they are, it's really tough for me to quickly figure out why they made certain decisions. Why did they pick this vendor? Why did they choose this strategy? And there's no one that documents that on any platform, because it's just too time consuming. So, but for me, to help me a lot as someone that just joined the team to understand, okay, how this team came to these decisions, because it will save me so much time. So that's the kind of things that help me.
Yeah, in a fast-growing company, like you get a bunch of the team members have only been there a few months, also. So it's really hard to find anyone who's got the institutional knowledge.
And normally, the first thing I do is almost look at the folder structure of the team. And if I look at the folder structure, it also because I'm a very structured person. If I look at the folder structure, and if I spend more than 5 minutes trying to find something, I already know, okay, this is going to be chaos. And in my team, we discuss the folder structure every year, and it was actually a project on its own to just, okay, how can we document knowledge? And it had to be almost like not an objective and key result on its own, but it requires so much effort to keep knowledge just with the intent of saying, hey, we are going to disappear as a team. Maybe not now, but maybe in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, this is going to be a different team. So let's make sure that the next ones that come in have the resources to do better than us. That's the way I think. The ones that come after have to do better than us and whoever was there before.
Yeah, I want to rewind a little bit to a question I skipped over, but one that I think is kind of fundamental to this journey for you. If you can tell us a little bit about the founder sort of the founder experience versus when you were part of these fast growing teams before. Maybe where some surprises are in that founder experience, and just I know you've kind of touched on that in some of the earlier questions, but just digging in a little bit more about your day-to-day culture shift.
Yeah. So sorry. So I think one of the hardest parts I found was actually how to prioritize your week, your day-to-day, because you can do anything. You can, all right, should I work on my deck? Should I go and start a funding round and go and do a pitch non-stop to every single angel investor VC? Yeah. Should I really focus on the product? Should I just go and talk to as many potential customers as possible? There's so many things that as a founder, you almost might get blocked by the amount of things you can do. Should I iterate on the website? So I find that the right prioritization is a tough one. I'm trying to center myself around nailing down the exact pain point that has the most value to what we're trying to address, and that is kind of my guiding approach. So is this getting me closer to figure out the pain point that I actually want to tackle, and is the solution resonating with them? But even then it's tough. But what surprised me the most, and I'm not sure if it's good or not, but I was surprised by the amount of conversations that exist on the founder. The first question is always about funding rounds. And maybe because I came from a whole startup scale-up experience, I always think that the first question should be about either the problem you are solving or the customers you are talking to. But almost immediately, when someone talks to me, asks the 1 minute pitch and says, so are you raising funds? And I'm like, why is that the default way of building a company? And so that's a surprising fact. So there's plus and minuses on that, but it was surprising to me to see so much attention given to it, where I see multiple ways of growing a company besides a traditional funding round or funding or raise funding. That's one. On the other side, the best part is really the flexibility of your day to pick your battles. And I feel at best when I'm talking to a customer, he's talking about the pain point. I can connect with the pain point. I'm like, oh, yes. I know what you're talking about. I've seen a pattern. And then maybe the solution resonates with them. And yeah, sometimes it resonates and they say, yes, we are on the right track. Sometimes they say, well, some parts resonate, some parts not, because I saw it in another way. So not everything is like flowers and everyone resonates. Some people say, no, this is too simple for me. So, but it gives me energy to talk to customers, and I think that's the best part about being a founder, which is the chance to, to just double down on that part of customer advocacy or customer inputs. Which at a scale up sometimes can be tough. The bigger it becomes, I realized at EVBox towards the end, if I wanted to talk to a customer, I had to talk to the account executive, which said, let me find the right moment to talk to the customer. And, I just want to basically say, I want to talk to the customer, I want to talk it now or tomorrow. That's it. Just that there's why there is so many restrictions to talk to a customer. And everyone, so that part, I'm glad I don't have to think about that any longer. It's just like, okay, I want to talk today to a customer, let me talk to a customer today, or a prospect or an audience. Yeah.
Right.
So have those conversations that you've been having with different people in different industries, has that helped you already kind of figure out where you think this will resonate, or are you still trying to figure out like who the market really is? I realize more and more that naturally if you are a remote team working asynchronously, this has more empathy. Product teams, marketing growth teams have more also affinity because they already run experiments. They already see the pain point of having so many decisions. So they understand the concept of experiments, for example, or a product team understands the concept of rituals. But for example, I had a few conversations with some people that came from sales or from finance. For them, it's a little bit tougher because they don't run experiments. Some of them, the ritual is just a weekly meeting or a bi-weekly meeting, and that's it. So it's quite a leap for them to think about, but how do I run an experiment with a team? Why would I let my team members run an experiment? How does it look like? So the knowledge gap is so much that at least at the start, we are really focusing on product and engineering teams and some growth teams that are especially working remotely and asynchronously. And we know that the sweet spot is somewhere at the period of time EVBox was, which is less than 250 people and more than 10 people. So that's kind of the funnel that I'm doing, trying to get to as focused as possible on let's call it ideal customer profile or a persona. Even if it's a wrong one, at least I'm focusing on understanding their pain point really well and the kind of organization they live. And then if I can build something that resonates, then yes, then I'll keep iterating. And if not, well, that's a great part of being a product-led company. You just
adjust, spin off, try something else, try a new approach, and here you go again. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, when you spoke to Sean a couple of years ago, the thing I remember, one of the things that really stuck out to me was you talked about, and I think you alluded to this a little earlier, you weren't just trying to take markets, you were trying to lead the industry, which is like such an interesting way to look at the world. And you explained why customer advocacy was such an important piece of that. And it seems like for you, customer advocacy is just built into who you are. But as you think about what to do next, what to prioritize, and making sure you're not getting ahead of your skis, are you thinking about like, how am I going to lead this industry? Or are you saying, no, let me just figure out a market? Is it sort of the opposite, or is it the same?
So mindset-wise is similar, but the difference with EVBox is I knew that I was at momentum where I knew, okay, this company has a good positioning, has already a solid brand, has product market fit. The industry is just growing and it doesn't know exactly what to trust or what are kind of basic questions. It was at a stage where, people were almost asking the equivalent of how many emails can I send with 10 gigabytes? That was the kind of stage. No one asks that today. You have 10 gigabytes on your cell phone, you just use it. You don't know how many videos of minutes you can play. But at the time, people were really asking that, okay, if I use EVBox, how many kilowatt do I need to drive 10 kilometers? Which is a ridiculous conversation. You don't need to think about that. You just charge, drive, on a day-to-day basis. But that was the stage that they were in. So I was like, wow, we can really lead the industry because all the competitors were just trying to sell and build market, and no one was trying to educate the market and say, hey, let us help you out understand this. So we took that angle. Now, this is a different angle: leadership, team engagement, team platform. There's so much knowledge out there. And now I don't want to be presumptuous to say I'm going to lead the industry, but I do have the mindset to say I think there is a chance to influence the industry on what might be some different ways of thinking about team engagement, team ownership, peer-to-peer leadership in an era where that is becoming less and less often. So that's what I think about. And a good example of how I still think on a partnering way, and for example, the way we are launching Ritmoo is through a partnership with another company, which were co-founders that I met, which were trying to address the same problem, but from a different angle. They come from a new type of assessment based on transactive memory system that identifies levers of the team and how to become more productive. So they were building that platform. We are building Ritmoo, and they said, well, we have the assessment. You have the tool that can help them track all the experiments and interventions. Let's team up and do a joint pilot to our customers and your customers. So we are now starting a pilot with a few, even large multinationals and small companies, because we don't know who can work the best with. And we are teaming up, and we might still finish the pilot and go our separate ways. Mm-hmm. But we are teaming up on let's understand what this industry is about and what are the pain points that people are feeling. So that comes from this mindset. And maybe if I was very competitive driven, I'll be like, no, you are a competitor, go your way and I go mine. So elements of it are there, but I'm not kidding myself and understanding that, yes, this is going to be an industry that also wants to compete and also wants to say, this is how we rank up against you and vice versa. So it's a little bit different from EVBox, but some parts of it are retaining.
Yeah, I think when you were kind of talking about like your day-to-day activity and where do you put your time, how do you prioritize these things? A lot of the examples that you gave came back to things that relate to getting to product market fit. So, and even as you're talking about here, ideal customer profile, is it from 10 to 250, or is it somewhere else? And so I want to kind of stick with that theme and say, all right, obviously so much of your success is going to be governed by your ability to really find the right product that meets the needs of a market that isn't even fully identified yet. And so what does that process look like for getting there? That helps you guide some of that prioritization, but ultimately, you said, the pain point and the problem focus. I assume that you did some work there even before deciding to go forward. If you if you didn't think the problem was existing, the solution probably wouldn't matter. But so I'm curious, maybe what work did you do that said, okay, there really is an opportunity here. I'm going to build a company around this. And then what does it continue to look like now?
So interesting enough. And what helped me here was also I joined an acceleration program over the summer. That helped me get into the momentum of it, but not with Ritmoo, but in a general, how to be a founder and connect with other founders. So that gave me a bit of structure. But what was most interesting is that I actually worked over 3 months before even deciding that, yes, I'm going to launch this. And that was spent on, let's call it a phrase I call is even pre-product market fit, just language market fit. I think that would be the best iteration, which is what I'm trying to promise and what I'm trying to address resonating with the audience without even talking about the product. So I think I put a few surveys out there. That was quantitative analysis. I got probably 250 replies to those in total. So that helped me have some quantitative analysis there. Then I had 4 in-depth pilots where I built up a survey with the help of a neuroscientist person that was at the cohort. I got lucky there. We built a type of survey that helps just give a dimension to the team, and that helped trigger experiments that the team wanted to run, and then I'll coach the team into running those experiments along with the manager. Mm-hmm. And that took about 2 months, and I did only with 4 teams because there was no capacity for more. But I was in depth with one team of 40 people of marketing team, one team of 20 HR people, one team of just 10 people startup with the founder. So that was in-depth talks with the team on a daily basis, see if the experiment was running, and then all the teams improved the way they were working at the end of it. So I was like, okay, there is some proof of concept, but it was very much handhold. Yeah. So, with someone helping them out almost like as a consultant.
So kind of an MVP being more of a consulting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the MVP was built, a little bit with, using a survey tool for the survey, then using a whiteboarding tool like Miro for the workshops, then building, a Slack channel with a fake AI, which was basically not AI, fake bot, which was me replying to all the team challenges. So they'll post there and I'll reply back. But all of that was giving me in-depth information. So after the survey, after that, and I did about 60 interviews with different people. That was like super intense. At the end of it, I was like, okay, there's still something out there, and there's still so many pain points that is impossible to tap them all.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start with one that everyone talked about, which was the inability to affect change. That they lose the interest and they disengage with the company, with the team, at the moment that they say, I can no longer contribute and affect positively with the team. And then if I double down on that, it was because they were not asked anything about the team. They didn't have a say on how the team works. So then I was like, okay, there's something about the team culture. And that's how then afterwards what I did was I put a landing page online. Mm-hmm. And put some Google ads even behind it with some of my own money just to see what happens with the traffic.
Sure, yeah.
And that started me seeing, like, okay, if I put something about this topic, X amount of people convert. If I put these, more people convert. If I send this landing page to 50 friends, 5 of them actually sign up. So I tested maybe 15 landing pages over 2-3 months and just seeing which one resonated the most. Mm-hmm. And then in October, I was like, okay, now I'm fine. Now I found a co-founder. That was a very important part. Finding a co-founder is key because I was not going to do this alone. And he's a CTO, a technical co-founder who I trust and work 7 years with. And then and I was like, okay, now I have someone that can build a platform which reduces the stress of building. Yeah. I did a lot of tests. I'm sure I'm onto something, even if I am not pinpointing exactly that whole, golden egg of a solution. I still know that's something out there. I still see the pain point being there, and that's for me enough to keep moving.
Yeah, no, and then one of the things you also touched on when you were talking about kind of the ideal customer profile. I think you said if it's a growth team that has at least some remote element to it. So I'm curious when you're looking at the given that so many teams have moved to kind of hybrid and remote, is there some market trends that are essentially making some of the problems worse that you're trying to solve that maybe will increase market need as you figure out what that market need is and how to solve it. There's also trends that are growing that market need.
There's definitely a few of them that are happening, and you see them popping up in a few places. So naturally, after Corona, the whole home and remote working is demanding for a different kind of leadership or a different kind of management. Mm-hmm. Because at the office, everything was very much physical, present, and then in remote work, it was everything online, everything through meetings. But then everything that was individual interactions and sparks was replaced by a conference call. Yeah. Which means that people just got wear down and exhausted. Right. And now with hybrid work, it's what's happening is I think I haven't seen any office changing that, which is you do a workshop now that you went back to the office, but half of the people are online, half of the people are in person. But the people that are in person run as if it was a physical meeting, and online people are just trying to keep up with it. So there's still a disconnect on practices of engagement that really work out. And the people that are being left out don't find a way to voice out their opinion. Because the trend is to do an employee engagement score. So people ask a survey to the company every 6 months, every 3 months. But the trend is that change on a team culture is happening more on a weekly or at least on a monthly basis. It's going so fast, the changes, that people have to start paying attention to the team more frequently than launching a survey every 6 months. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that is happening, the need for a dynamic team culture rather than a fixed culture. So that's one of those ones. And the other one, and that's one that also is going to be challenging for me as well as a founder of a B2B SaaS, but there's a sense of app fatigue. So everyone is overwhelmed with the amount of tools, not because of a tool to compete with mine, but because I have a communication tool, then an OKR tool, then an HR tool, then a Salesforce tool. And besides the day-to-day tools on your application of the phone, which is 100. So
the team I'm working with, just to build on that, like I'm in my 4th month of an interim VP growth role that I haven't actually announced yet, kind of publicly, for a number of reasons we could go into at a different time. But we recently had a conversation where we have a process, a growth process that sits across 2 tools. And the desire from the engineering team to consolidate it into one tool, for example, where it's the more technical tool, where some of the kind of non-engineers that are part of the growth team are maybe a little bit nervous about going into a very technical tool. And so I think it's this app fatigue that you're talking about. It is interesting. It's like, gosh, do we really need 2 for this, or can we consolidate down to 1? And then you're in a situation where you're like, now maybe even a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th that are part of layering on top of processes. I think that's an interesting background to go into.
I used to refer to it as tool creep, and I agree. I think it's gotten much worse. I remember at one time years ago at Teltech, we just did an audit of all the tools we had and what we were paying for and what we were actually using. And it was just cathartic getting rid of so many things that we weren't using. But the reality is that, I think people also naturally start to look to tools to solve problems, and which, that's why you have tools. But I think we over-index on the tool being the solution to more of a cultural problem. So we started with Jira, and then we moved to a product called Clubhouse, then we moved to another product and another product. I'm like, I don't think it's the tool that's the problem. I think it's us. We have to come up with a different way to work. So it sounds like you're addressing a lot of that.
Yeah, so and me and our founder try to build some principles. So one of them is understanding that we have to build in mind that people, at least to a certain extent, majority of the people should be able to use a tool where they are. So if you spend your time on Slack, maybe there should be a way that you don't have to log in and just can get all the information, share all the information, and interact without leaving it. That's one of the principles. The other one is that it comes down with a survey. So the tendency to have more and more surveys to figure out what's wrong with the team. And you're trying to double down on the idea that let's try to figure out how to improve and help the team be productive and have a good team culture without a single survey. And that's a little bit more challenging, but we think there's an opportunity there, because whereby individually you might not be able to open up your communications because it might be too private, but as a team, having a chance to analyze the way the team talks, the way the team engages, the way the team decides, creates so much knowledge on how teams interact that maybe that alone can tell, hey, the team is feeling really tired, because of this kind of like tone of voice or this kind of interaction. Maybe it's good to give a rest. Maybe it's good to do something about it. And that should be the direction and not yet another.
What's the energy boost program that we need to bring in there?
Yeah, something along those lines. So naturally, that's where we want to head on without building yet another survey, because that's how everyone gets knowledge on the team. But along with that fatigue, we just see that people are exhausted of surveys, that yet another survey. And so we are trying to figure out if there is a possibility technology-wise to do it, which seems to be, but it's going to take its time. And it's fine. We are here for the long run, not for a short-term win.
Yeah. But it's interesting when you say you're here for the long run. It's, having gone down a similar journey myself of being ahead of growth at some really fast-growing companies, and then saying, damn it, I'm going to be a founder, and I have so much respect for founders, I'm going to go down that journey, and then literally spending 10 years of working on some different businesses, and some of them with some success and some exits, and others with none of them to the success that I wanted to have, and then essentially saying, I don't have a great skill for getting to product market fit. Where my strength is, it's about understanding that product market fit and really accelerating into the markets when I've got a good product that has that need. I obviously don't want to just the reason I wanted to become a founder was because I have so much respect for founders. I'm just curious, when do you go through periods where you're like, man, I just wish I had product market fit to just grow so fast, and just, it's so exciting and such an awesome feeling when you have something customers want and you just have to be creative about getting a lot more of them. How's that kind of emotional journey of like grass is greener on the other side?
that you're putting it quite there. I think at least on a weekly basis, I go through some sort of imposter syndrome kind of feeling.
Sure,
I think it's not on a daily basis, at least on a weekly basis. And the fact that I still chose to build a product and not going for a full-on funding round, but really tapping into, I'm going to double down until I find the customer. And then once I find the customer, once I have traction, and I say, yeah, this is really working and is great, then maybe I can look for ways to accelerate that go-to-market.
Yeah.
That was my choice of approach. Might be wrong or right, but it was a choice I
think
made.
it's a smart approach, actually. Yeah.
And also with the economic circumstance of today's markets, maybe it's better to do a better. It's maybe better to start with a really good round.
Once you take on money, then once you take on enough money, then essentially that gives you a lot of staying power. And a lot of staying power is not necessarily what the goal is. You don't want to stay if you don't have a solution that really solves an important problem, especially if you've been down that journey with EVBox, where you saw what real product market fit looks like. But it is a huge challenge getting to that product market fit. And so I think that's where if you're really confident you have it, then taking lots of funding to accelerate into it is great. But I like the way you're approaching it now. Yeah,
so that's the approach. And what I did was I put a time frame to myself. I said, within the next 3 to 5 years, I'm really going to invest on this journey. So. And if I figure out that it doesn't work, like you, there is a part of me that thinks maybe I'm not fit to be a founder, and I have to come to the realization because it's not the right stage. Maybe from 0 to 1, not my style. Might be 1 to 100, and that's perfectly fine. But I had to figure out if the 0 to 1 is possible.
And part of that's that experimental mindset that makes us good at growth in the first place.
Exactly. So the next 3 to 5 years is that, and I said that everything takes into account. So I even said, and me and my co-founder have this agreement, if in a year and a half, for example, we are not figuring out with the product, we even said, okay, Ritmoo becomes a service company for a time period for us to get deeper knowledge, and goes back to become a product company. Even that is on the table, just to figure out that if you can really make an impact to the people you want to serve. So that's the kind of like non-scalable kind of things that people do to figure out there. And we are also conscious that most of the success stories that inspire us, all the founders said was a 7 to 10 year journey, and no one even heard of what we were trying to build in the first 5 years. And suddenly it grew, and it becomes a success story. But then no one, they say like all the first 3 years of sleepless night challenges, that becomes, in retrospective, very important. But yeah, they are gone. So I put a 3 to 5 year frame, and then if in this 3 to 5 year frame, we realize that okay, the 0 to 1 is just not our sweet spot. That's great. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this experience might also help me become an even better scale-up builder if I decide to go back to that journey and resonate better with founders.
Right. I think it has for me, because you start to realize how important product market fit truly is. It's not about the tactics. It's about actually understanding why your product resonates with certain people in a certain way, and how to acquire those people at scale to an experience where they're going to be able to appreciate the product. And I think if you haven't tried to create product market fit, you could potentially breeze over the importance of that.
Yeah, no, true, truly agree. Yeah.
So what do you see now as the biggest challenge you have to overcome?
For me is how to nail down the actual pain point I want to solve first, and how we are solving really resonates and makes it work for those teams that trust us. Because it's such a big topic with a lot of pain points, and even the people that sign up, they sign up for different reasons for Ritmoo, and all those different reasons are also different product development priorities. So that's really a big challenge, and trying to overcome that, but by just seeing which of the users that are willing to go to the beta are also willing to sign that if it works well, they are agree to the price, for example. And then I say, okay, maybe there is a pattern of the people that want to solve this problem are willing to pay because it's such a big one. And these ones that say, this I really want to test out, but they are not willing to commit, maybe it's not strong enough of a pain point to help people that are willing to pay for it. So that's kind of the approach to overcome the biggest challenge that I see now with Ritmoo and what we are facing now. And I think that's the majority of the one. And of course, like finding the product market fit comes from this. But yeah, I think this is the biggest one that is on my mind, which is the actual big pain point. And with that, figuring out what is the ideal customer profile, not from all those, but even more funneled down to the actual people that are facing it. Because now there's a lot of personas, which I know from EVBox doesn't work out. You have to go towards, a few. And so that's the other one, which is doubling down on the ideal customer profile. Where it's not 10 to 250, but it's just 10 to 20, and that's it. And just doubling down on all the 10 to 20.
Or at least in the beginning, and maybe it's like to then tap into the 20 to 50. We'll need to have a much more sophisticated product, or kind of a roadmap there.
and sometimes there are conversations that throw you off, and you don't even know how to react. So, for example, one of them was a CEO that signed up, 200 people company, and he says, "I was looking for a tool like that for my management team." He wants to have all the executive management decisions that are always lost, centralized in one place that the team really uses well. He says, you should just build this for management teams and supervisory boards so that they all have the decisions that they made. And, if I want to go back and see if executive did a wrong decision, I can say, this is a decision you made 6 months ago, and this is where we are now.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, that's, was a little bit far off, but I was like, okay, this is actually an interesting proposition I never thought. Just for the top teams, because they're willing to spend more if it works for them.
Yeah, but I think that's a scary part of the journey, is that you might end up 6 months from now going, damn it, I had the answer from that one conversation, and it took us an extra 6 months to go there because I just didn't listen hard enough. And so there's so many paths that you can go.
Yeah,
you can definitely be nervous about the path not taken.
And it's incredible challenge, especially even with scale-ups that happens. And to be honest, at EVBox, even the previous, I think almost everyone faces. There are so many paths to grow that even at EVBox we found many of them, but because there were so many of them, at times the growth was becoming unsustainable because the requirements of customers are so diverse that you want to build products for all of them, whereby you actually have to say, we're no longer going to serve this type of customer, and we have to let go of this chunk of revenue because it's no longer suiting us.
Yeah.
So that's such a scary decision to make, that I understand that, a lot of scale-ups prefer to just keep on going, and the market will rectify itself, and then suddenly down the line they think, I should have done that decision a year ago to avoid the situation where I'm now. And that happened also at EVBox without the fault of anyone, just the sheer excitement of trying to become the best at everything for everyone. That's it. Yeah.
I think for founders, I know I remember thinking, after the fact, hindsight is such a curse. It's being able to because you can absolutely look back at everything you did and think about a different way you could have done it that probably would have been better. And in the moment, it's so hard to realize that.
The only thing that I will say there, having like, I don't want to use too much of a U.S. term where we talk about it as like a Monday morning quarterback or a quarterback, but which is an American football thing, but ultimately when I look back at some of the struggles that I had with startups that I've tried to grow from product market fit, I think my biggest regret was I got too excited about my solution and didn't spend enough time really validating frustration around the problem. And I don't hear that from you. I hear you focusing a lot on understanding the problem and making sure that you're solving a problem that really matters to people. So that's good.
Well, the fun fact was the trigger moment for me on that. And it's very hard because when you're leading a team or a founder, you get too excited about your own voice. That's what I normally say, and that's not a good thing. But it was actually my team taught me that on the day that I was very clear that people go to the website, they search by product. There's no other way, And then my, let's call it lead generation, demand generation, head of growth marketing, because at the time our titles were all over the place, but she was the closest to a growth marketeer. She was saying, look, I think the user behavior is changing. I think people want to search by their use case, if I'm a facility manager, a workplace, if I am. And at the time, thank God I did that. I said, okay, prove me wrong. So she ran the whole experiment on the navigation, on the way people consume the content on the website. And I was not just wrong, I was terribly wrong, because all the open click rates through the website, time on page, bounce rates, call to action to request a call, all of that improved by 50% plus by changing the navigation and the way of interacting with the website. So I was so wrong that I was like, okay, I think I've got to a stage where I create a lot of biases on my own formed opinions from past experience, and now I have to start asking more questions and let my team actually drive the conclusions and the experiment. So I think that was a key moment to my team to prove me wrong on that one. That was a trigger for me that led me to also where I am today of thinking, okay, I have to keep challenging my own assumptions, which is tough when you are a founder because it's me and my co-founder battling each other's assumptions.
Right.
and we have a small agency that helps us out, so they also challenge a little bit of our assumptions. But it's a very small team to challenge assumptions with each other. So I find
at least when you have different assumptions from your co-founder, that's a particular focus of we can't both be right here. Let's vet and try to find what the right answer is. And so sometimes when there's a difference of opinion, it highlights an area where we should be doing some testing.
All right.
Obviously, we could go on and ask a ton of questions and keep talking. As not surprisingly, to even have you back on a couple of years later, it just shows that the desire to keep talking with you is a strong one. So I do want to end with the same question that we ended with last time. And after you give me the answer, I'll actually play back what your answer was the previous time. But it is, what do you feel like you understand about growth now that you maybe didn't understand as well a few years ago, and we'll particularly say while you were in the heat of things at EVBox, what do you understand about growth now that maybe you didn't understand then?
Well, first off, thank you for that question, because I use that question so many times in interviews Adjusted the question to say what do you feel like you understand about team leadership now that you didn't understand as well a couple of years ago. It's a fantastic question. I absolutely love it. I think the latest learning I've got, especially after EVBox, is just a simple realization that growth is really about, for me, finding a systemic process and levers that help you grow not just in a few months or years, but like for a decade or even longer. And for that to happen, it's not a job of a role of an individual or even a team. It's a stakeholder effort that everyone has to agree how growth happens, what are the growth levers, and having the buy-in on the path from all the senior leadership or key stakeholders. If that's not in place, what I've noticed at EVBox and even at other scale-ups or startups I've been coaching is that it becomes one individual or one team putting all the effort on the growth lever, but no one else is on the same page, which means that a sales team can sell a service that is not possible, or to a customer that is not intended to. CEO and management team can make decisions that don't fit the customer long-term profitability. So yeah, for me, growth is definitely a stakeholder buy-in on how to build a systemic approach to a process that scales. That's how I've realized.
I love that. I spend a lot of time in my current interim VP growth role of just essentially playing back the week's learnings to the leadership team of how does this business really grow, and how has our view maybe evolved a little bit based on new insights on experiments that are working, new data we've uncovered, or even qualitative insights through the dreaded surveys that I can't get away from them. I love running surveys because I think it does add a layer there, but obviously users may not be as enthusiastic. But I want to play back what you actually said last time too, to show that constant evolution of thinking. You had talked about, paraphrasing here, that you cannot copy the strengths of a customer relationship. Competitors copy the way you interact with customers, or cannot copy the way you interact with customers. And so it really comes down to the importance of building those customer relationships. There's a real competitive advantage moat there, I think, is what you were saying. Any thoughts on that quote?
Well, still valid. Yeah. So I wondering, when do I actually apply that nowadays? With the startup now, what I'm thinking, that works once the foundation for product market fit is found. Yeah, so I agree. You cannot copy the strength of a customer relationship, but the foundation to solve the problem has to be there. I think that's the evolution from that thinking. Because the EVBox was a given. So naturally I was thinking like that. But now I'm like, I have a great customer relationship with some people that are super enthusiastic about the product, and they haven't yet used it, or naturally because it's being built, or they see bits and pieces and try bits and pieces. But if it's launched to them and they say, well, actually it doesn't work the way I intended or I thought about, you can have a great relationship with them, but they say, okay, thank you very much. So so now I realize you cannot copy the strength of a customer relationship once the fundamentals of the pain point are solved and the product market fit is there. I think that's the addition that was not there before. But
interestingly, you did start early on. You mentioned that you really wanted to pay attention to what customers were doing more than competitors at this point, and I think that's really critical if you're understanding the problem. So. Yeah, no, definitely, and I every time that someone signs up, I immediately contact you, say, hey, can we have the call? Just to know you, to see what's there, what you're trying to solve with your team. I don't even care if they like Ritmoo or not. I just want to, hey, this is yet another person that somehow clicked on the access to early waiting list, beta lists for some reason. So let me talk and understand why. So that's my best source of knowledge at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. So key takeaways for me is just reminding myself of what a challenging journey it is to get to product market fit. And again, just, kudos to all those founders out there who've stuck with it. Like, the world would not have so many great innovative solutions and all the progress if we didn't have founders that were willing to hang in there and get the right solutions to the problems that the world has. Turns out that that's not for me as much. So just seeing the struggles of that challenge is a reminder that to appreciate the opportunity to work with companies that have already solved that, so that I can pour fuel on the fire and help them grow faster. But I have mad respect for what you are working on, and wish you the best in continuing to get it dialed in and driving success. And we will have you back a third time to talk about your massive breakout growth when the time is right.
That will be a good sign for both of us.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sean.
Awesome, Hugo. Thanks. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Talk to you guys
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Breakout Growth Podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss a show. Until next week.